Hey, this is Jerry from Bliz Studio, and we're going to take a little bit of a pause from our regularly scheduled tutorial. So what are we going to be doing? I am working on creating a little bit of generation. Now, you can hopefully use this for all kinds of different things in your games. I didn't know how to do this, so I had an idea in my head and I wanted to see what I could do. And at the end of this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and post up those files. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I'm gonna go ahead and email these files to you. So if you're ready to get generating, let's go. What I wanna do is I want to create a generative level, a generative landscape, a generative something. And so what I have, an idea is that, I'm just gonna draw this out. I'm in Photoshop, and the idea for just me starting to think down this road of generative level design, generative, I don't know, game design, whatever, is that I want to put a spawner in place, okay? And what I want to do is I want to spawn a base. And then, so that base would be a piece of ground. Then on top of that, so with that ground, I'm going to have 3 different ground options, okay? And so, you know, whether they're grass, you know, whatever, a bush, so on and so forth. So 3 different versions of those, and there could be more. This is just where I'm starting. And then I'm also going to have 3 tree bases, so bases of trees, so whatever those are going to look like. And then I'll also have 3 different tops for the trees, so whatever those are going to look like as well. Okay, so the idea is that I'm gonna put these in an array, and I'm gonna pull out one of those from each and then build a unit square, right? So 1 unit, you know, whatever landscape that is, and then 1 random tree trunk, and then 1 random tree top, okay? And so, and then with that, I'm gonna go ahead and just delete all this. And with that, what I want to do is I want to create a spawner, okay? And the spawner is going to generate 3 of those, and then it's going to move 1 unit, and then do that again, move 1 unit, do it again, move 1 unit, and do it again. Once I get to the end of however many of those sequences I want to go, so let's just say 5 times, then what I want to do is I want to move the spawner down to the next level, and then do this all over again. And ultimately, I think what I'm going to do is just do a 5 by 5 grid. So 5 of these rows and 5 of the columns. So eventually, hopefully, I should have a 5 by 5 unit square of land. Now, this could be all kinds of different things, but again, I'm just kind of, this is what my idea to start out with. Okay, so that's the idea. So we're going to have the spawner that's going to move down and create 5 pieces of land, move down to the next row, create 5 more, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the idea. Let's go ahead and go into Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project, and I'm going to just have this be a universal render pipeline project, so a 3D game or a 3D game, and let's just call this generative, and I'll leave it in my tutorials folder. Okay, so here we are in Unity, and I want to go ahead and start working on creating a level. So I want to go ahead and start creating a landscape. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and just create an empty game object, and I'm going to go ahead and just call this landscape. Okay, so I've got that. And then inside of that, I want to create another empty game object, and I'm going to call this my land spawner. Okay, so we have that in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply my FSM directly to the landscape so that everything is kind of just in this one nice little package. Now, again, this is just an experiment, so you kind of have to work with me through this one. So I need to go ahead and start an FSM. And the thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and figure out exactly where my camera's at, exactly where 0, 0 in the location's at, And then what I want to do is go ahead and set up a spawner. So for me to kind of just know exactly where my spawner is, I want to make sure my landscape's at 0, 0. I want to make sure my spawner is at 0, 0. And just so I know exactly where that's at, I'm going to go ahead and just create a 3D cube in that location so I can see where it's at within the game and I kind of know what's happening. I'm going to go ahead and just make this cube just a little bit smaller. So I'll go 0.5 by 0.5 by 0.5. And then I'm going to go ahead and just set my camera up so that that's kind of a little more on the left side of the screen than on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick my camera, and then I'm going to move my camera a little bit back just so I can kind of see what's going on here. Yeah, that works. Okay, so I have this all kind of set up. I'm going to leave that cube in there for now just so I can kind of see what's going on. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to gather some information about the spawner, okay? And I need to establish an X value and a Z value. So where this is in space, okay? Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the position of my spawner every time that I generate one of the landscapes. So I know that I need to update the X value and the Z value of this landscape. So it's the left and right and then in and out, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and set up a new variable, and it's gonna be a float type variable, which is position as a float. I wanna go ahead and set up a float variable for position X. I'll go ahead and add that in, and then I'll create one more called position Z. Okay, so I have those set up. So the next thing I need to do is just go ahead and make sure my spawner is in the right location. What I'm going to do is to go ahead and just set the positions here. So let's just make sure that everything is set up the way we want it to. I'm going to go ahead and just do a set position. So set spawner position. Okay. And then inside of that, oops, let's see, set spawner position. All right, so then inside of that, I need to go ahead and I want to set the X value, the Y value, and then set the position of the spawner. So let's, just to make sure we're in the right spot, I'm going to go ahead and set float value. Okay, and the float value that we want to set is our X, so we're going to set that to 0. I don't need to do every frame because I'm only doing this once. And then I also want to set the Z value, and I'll have that be 0 as well. And if you want it to be in any other position, you can, set up whatever those floats are going to be, -5, whatever. But in this case, I'm just going to set it to 0. And then I actually need to use those values to set the position of the spawner. So I need to go ahead and set position, bring that in, and the position of the object that I want to set is my spawner. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that in. And then I want to set those values based off of the X and the Z. We're not setting the Y and the Z value. Okay, so cool. Those are all set up, which is exactly what I need to do. Now, once we're done that, I need to go ahead and just add a finish transition. And then we need to kind of determine what happens next. And I think the first thing I need to do is to create one of the bases. Okay, so for me to do that, I first need to have an array that contains all of the different bases. So let's go ahead and set up our arrays. So let's do that first. So I'm going to create an array, and I'll call this bases. These are the ground pieces, and I want to set this, oops, and I want this to be an array here. And then what type of array that I want it to be? I want it to be a game object type array. Okay, so it's array of game objects. So very similar to adding levels in here. I'm adding pieces of ground. So I want there to be 3 because that's how many bases that I have. And then what I'm going to do is I need to, let's go ahead and create a new folder over here for models. So these are the game objects that I created. And I created those in Asset Forge, and then brought those in, exported them out and brought them in, or I'm bringing them in as FBX files. Let's bring those into my models. And here's what those should look like. So there's base 1, base 2, base 3, and then I also have tree stumps, 3 different ones, and then 3 different tree tops. Again, just all low poly stuff to have something to work with. Okay, so what I need to do is, again, my bases, I need to go ahead and add all 3 of those to my array. Okay, so I have that done. Now I need to go ahead and create another array for the tree bases. So let's call this tree bases. And this is also going to be an array. Go ahead and add. I need 3 of those. And then what I want to do is to add the tree bases in to my spots. And these need to be a game object as well. So a game object type of array. So let's add those, dang it, and a game object. Okay, so now I can add them. Cool, so now I have that. I can go ahead and add one more array for the treetops. And this is not going to be a float, it's going to be an array. And another game object type array, and it's going to have 3 of those in there as well. So treetop. So I have 3 of each. And the idea is that I'm going to kind of pull randomly from these arrays to kind of configure what that base, trunk, and top is going to look like. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is actually create one of the bases. Okay, so let's create ground. Let's do that. And then what is it I want to do? Well, I want to go ahead and create an object. So create object. And what I want to do is, before I create an object, I need to pull from that array. So let's go ahead and do an array get. And I want to array get random because I want to get one of those bases randomly. So I'm going to go ahead and add that first before create object. So what we're going to do is choose from the bases array, and I need to store that. So we're grabbing one of those out and saying, hey, which one of these is it? So we need to store that. So I want to go to new variable, and I'll go chosen base. Okay. And then what we're going to do here is the game object, in the create game object, we're going to use chosen base. Yep, so we've got that. We can go ahead and also set the parent. So I'm going to go ahead and just set the parent as the landscape. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag that down in. And then I also need to set the spawn point. So we're going to go ahead and use spawn the land spawner. And what we're going to do is move that spawn point each time we create a new set of objects. Okay, so we've got that set. So let's go ahead and just try this once. It should just create one base for us. So let's give this a check. Play to see if that's working. Yep, so there it goes. It grabs one of those bases, put it in the spot where our cube was. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm gonna just turn that cube off for the moment. Okay, let's go back to our ground here. And what I want to do is after I've created a ground, I need to then go ahead and create a tree base. So let's do a finished event here. And go off to a new state. And I'm trying to keep these all separate just so I can kind of see the process. Again, this is kind of just trying to figure things out as I go here. So we need to create a tree base. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing again. Array get random and chosen. So I'll just paste those in. The array that we need to pull from is the tree bases. Okay, and then we're going to have those go into a new variable called chosen tree base. Okay, and then here we want to create one of those, whatever that chosen tree base is. That's what we're going to create, and we're going to create that at the land or inside the landscape at the spawner position. Okay, so let's go ahead and give that a try real quick. Boom, there we go. So now we have a base and a tree trunk. All right, so let's go ahead and do a finished event with that. Go, and then of course we need to create a tree top. So create tree top. And then again, I'm gonna just use the same construction method. So let's go ahead and just copy these, paste, and the array that I want to pull from is my treetops. And we need to create a new variable called chosen treetop. Cool, so that works. And then here, the create object is the chosen treetop. And again, we're going to create it at the same location. Cool, so let's give that a try real quick. Boom, that works. Awesome. Okay, so the cool thing is, I think that how I want this to work is that I don't always want there to be a treetop. And so I think there's a couple different ways I can do that. And I think to add just a little bit of variety, if there is a treetop or not, I think I can go into the array. So let's go treetop and the treetops. So I have the number of treetops in there as 3. And I think if I want to have there be 50% chance of a treetop, then I can add another 3. So there's 3 with treetops and 3 without. If I want to, make it less of a percentage, that there's going to be an empty one, I can, maybe make this 4, and then I can just remove this last treetop here and have none in there. So there's a chance, a 1 in 4 chance that there's not going to be a treetop. So just something to try. Okay, so we've got that going on. We need to do it a finished event. And then once we're done doing that, we need to actually move our spawn point. So let's go move spawn point X. Okay, so we're gonna move the spawn point 1 X value over, okay? And I think that, let's see. Yeah, let's go ahead and move. Okay, so I think what I want to do is to go ahead and I need to move my spawn point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, because I have the position of my spawn point set up with an X and Z position, I can go ahead and just add to the X and then go back and reset the position. So let's do this real quick. I'm going to give this a try. Let's just set. See, I want to add to the float. So we're going to do a float add because the X position is a float based type variable. So we've got position X as a float. So here what we're going to do is do position X, and what we want to do is just add 1 because we're going to move that position over 1 unit. And then once I'm done doing that, let's go add transition and finished. And then I'm going to go ahead and loop back to my set spawner position. And then it should just go through and recreate each of these. So let's give that a try real quick and see what happens. I think this might be an infinite loop, so this might crash, who knows? Okay, yeah, it gave me an exceeded loop. Okay, so I know that we don't want to do that. So I think what I need to do is, because I'm going to have this only go 5 positions, what I need to do before I set the spawn X position, I want to add a new state in here that is to check to see what the position of the X value is of the spawn point. If it's 5 or greater, then I want to stop. Okay, so let's do a check spawn X. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is to do a float compare. Yep. And so I'm gonna compare the number of my spawn position X to 5, okay? So here we're gonna uncheck the first one. So is position X, if it's 5, then we wanna stop, okay? If it's not, we wanna continue. So let's go ahead and let's create 2 events. I wanna create one for stop. Let's go ahead and add one for continue. And then I'm gonna add one for stop. Yeah, that works. Okay. So let's go, if it's equal to 5, then we wanna stop. Okay, so I'm gonna add stop, add that transition in there. If it's less than 5, we wanna continue. And if it's greater than 5, we wanna stop as well. So just to make sure that's in there. So after we create our treetop, I want to go to check that value, okay? And if, let's go ahead and create a stop action here, stop state. And we're not going to have anything in that one. If it's less than 5, we're going to go ahead and continue back to move the spawn position. Okay, so we're setting the spawn position. We're creating the ground, creating a tree top. Then we're checking to see if our spawn position is 5 or less. And then if it's less, then we're gonna go ahead and move over by 1. Okay, so hopefully this should give us 5 pieces of ground, hopefully. And it looks like it gave us 5 pieces of ground, but they're all on top of each other. So we'll see, loop, spawn position X, float. If it's equal, stop. If it's less than, continue. We're doing a float add 1. And let's just see what our float variable is. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this real quick and see if this goes to 5. Okay, for some reason we're stopping. So let me just figure this part out real quick. Okay, so this is the problem, that I am going back and resetting my float values to 0 here. So what I'm gonna do is to add a new state here. So we're checking if it's 5 or less. If it's less than 5, go to spawn, add 1 to our spawn X. Here I need to go and set my position and skip this one because I have set values to 0. So what I'm doing is just looping right on top of another. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish to go to this new state, and we'll set new position X, okay? And in this, I'm gonna set position. So copy that, paste that back down. So we're specifying the land spawner with the new position X, and the position Z is fine. We're not adding to that yet. And I need to go ahead and add a finished state. And then we're gonna loop back to the create ground versus going to the start, because the start, we're setting it at 0, 0. And here we're skipping that part, because here we're setting the X here. So let's go ahead and give this a try real quick. Boom, there we go. We've now created this so that it's creating those 5 different levels, or 5 different landscapes. And you can see how it's kind of random. That's awesome. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to go ahead and create a, once we do those 5, we need to go and then move our position back to 0 on the X and then 1 on the Z. Okay, so here we need to, let's go ahead and leave the stop over there. I'm just gonna move all this over a little bit. And I think I wanna go ahead and colorize these too, because I wanna make sure I understand exactly what each of these is. So I'm gonna make the spawner blue. So let's go, and I'm gonna right click or control click, set color. Anything that's to deal with the spawner, I'm gonna go ahead and change that color to blue. So spawner, and this one's spawner. This one I want to have be a color of, let's maybe do orange. Oh, let's maybe do green. And then the bases we will have yellow, and then the tops we will have as orange. Okay, so that works. That kind of lets me know exactly what's happening with each of those. Okay, so here we're checking our spawn X, and then I also need to check the spawn Z. Okay, so if our spawn X is at 5, then I want to move position. So instead of going to stop, I'm going to go to a new state. So here we're kind of looping through the X's. Then if it's done doing the X's, then I need to go and move my position 1 on the Z and then restart the X's. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go check spawn Z. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing, do a float compare. And I'm going to go stop over here and paste in float compare. So I'm going to, instead of position X, I want to check position Z. I'm going to do the same thing. If it goes to 5, then I want it to stop. So I need to add these in there. Okay, so if it's going to stop, it goes to stop. If it's going to continue, then I need to add 1 to my spawn Z. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a new state. Again, I'm kind of just working this out in my head as I go. So let's see, move spawn point Z. And I'm doing a float add here. And the spawn Z, I want to add 1 to. Okay, so continue, we're going over here. Again, I want to change the color of that to be blue because it's a spawn point type. And so we're adding to our Z. The other thing that I want to do here as well is I want to reset the X, because it's like an old typewriter, right? It starts in the upper left-hand corner, goes across the line, then it moves down 1, then goes across the line again. So I need to start it back to 0. So I'm going to set spawn X to 0. So let's go, and I have that here, set float value. Let's do that here, set float value of our X back to 0. And then we're going to do a finish transition, and then I can probably just reuse this right here, spawn, because I have both position X and Z in here. So let's just go reset spawn X and Z. So let's do that. So go finished, and we're going to go here. Okay, so this should be good. We're setting our original position, creating a ground base, creating a tree base, creating a tree top, checking our spawn X, adding 1 to our float, then resetting our spawn position over by 1 because it's based off those variables, and then we're going back and looping through. And once it gets to 5, then we're going to go reset the Z, and then we're going to reset the X, and then go back and loop through again. And then let's see, once our Z reaches 5, then we're going to just stop. Okay, so let's give this a try real quick. Fingers crossed. Boom. Oh, dude, that is awesome. Freaking awesome. And there's even a few missing the treetops. That is so cool. So let me do this. I'm going to do one more thing. And let's go add state. I'm just going to add a small weight in here so it doesn't like instantly happen, and we can kind of see it building as it goes. So I'm going to add a small weight. Let's go weight. And let's just make this like 0.5 seconds. We'll do a finished event. And then I need to kind of figure out exactly where I want this to go. Let's I'm gonna add it right down in here. So after we create the treetop, it'll go to here, and then from here we'll go back to the spawn X. Okay, so I'm just kind of sticking this in here as a little pause. Okay, so let's give this a try real quick, and hopefully we see this building as it goes. Boom, there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5. Goes to the next level, the next row, boom. Oh yeah, this is so cool. Again, this is just an experiment, just to see if I can do it, and that works actually pretty good. I need to reset my camera so that it's kind of like centered on this. So let me just do that real quick. No, it's not gonna let me do it while I'm live. So I know I need to move it this way some. Let's give that a try real quick. Oh yeah, that's cool. I'll move it over just a little bit further. Oh yeah. Now there's a lot more stuff that I think that I could potentially do with this. I can maybe randomize the color of the treetops. I can randomize the size of the treetops. I think there's a bunch of different stuff that I can do with this, but this really gets pretty far, I think, in kind of thinking about levels and how they could be auto-generated. So this has some real possibilities, I think. Dang, I could just watch that over and over again. I can even randomize rotation. And if a lot more, different types, pieces of land, you can really do some really cool stuff, I think. Cool. And I think, I think I want to do something real quick. I can, let me see if I can set up a treetop randomize scale. That could be kind of cool. So let's array get random chosen treetop. So instead of going to my weight here, I'm just going to skip that down here. Let me just change the color of this to red. Okay, so that gives me kind of a little pause point. Here I'm going to do another state, and I want to randomize the scale of the treetop. So let's go treetop scale. And let's see, we have a chosen treetop here. So here we're get random. We're adding that to chosen treetop. So we can actually use that. So let's go and we'll set the color here to orange. And what do I want to do? Let's see, scale. Let's see, let's set scale of specified game object, and we're going to go and choose chosen treetop. And I think before I do that, I want to do a random between two numbers. So let's go random. And I think it's a float as well. So let's do a random float. So random float. So here we'll call this new variable. We'll do scale. Scale 1, and actually I'm gonna just hard code this in. So a scale of let's do scale from 0.6 to 1. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna store that result in scale 1. That's fine. Okay, then what we're gonna do is to set the scale of our chosen treetop based off of that float. So we can do that here. Let's do our scale one, we'll just put that on all of these. So each of the X, Y, and Z is going to be a random number. I think maybe these are all the same. Yeah, I think those are going to be all the same. So that should work. So here we're going to go to finished to, let's create the state. Let's go random scale top, right, tree top. So from 0.6 to 1. And then when we're finished doing that, we're going to go ahead and just go finished and then go back to our random weight, or our weight, and then go back through our checking system. And let's give this a try. Again, fingers crossed. Oh yeah, it's working. Yes. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this experiment, and it was fun for me to even be able to just try to see what I could do. There's a link in the description below so that you can sign up for my email newsletter. And if you do, then I'll email you these files. Again, please share these tutorials, and then if you don't mind, hit like, subscribe, and then that little bell icon down there so you know when the next tutorial is available. Until next time.